Welcome, everyone. Welcome to another Astral interview. And here with me, I have Satnam Singh. How are you today, Satnam?
I am doing good. Thank you very much. How are you?
I'm doing very well, too. We're really excited to have you with us and really appreciate the opportunity for you to be with us. So before we start more about you today, let's talk a little bit about your past. Tell us a little bit about yourself, about your history, where you grew up, to give everyone an idea of your background.
Okay, I grew up in Africa. I was born actually in Delhi, in India. And then when I was 2 years old, my family moved to Africa in Kenya, and I lived there for about 25 years. So most of my schooling and my education was just down in Africa. And then
I was born in Tanzania, so Africa as well.
Oh, nice. Fantastic. Yeah, that's just south of Kenya. Yeah, and then I moved to the UK, and I've been here for the last almost 24, 25 years now. And I'm settled in London now.
So tell me a little bit about your childhood. How was it growing up were you someone who was naturally faithful as a Sikh, or was that something that grew into you later days?
So my family was traditionally Sikh. My mom used to wear a keski or a turban like the one I'm wearing now. And she was the only lady who used to wear a turban, not only in our town, not only in our district, but actually in the whole country. And we used to think, oh, something wrong with mom, But actually, there's nothing wrong with mom. She was following the traditional Sikh way of life. So because we grew in an environment where other people were sort of like what I would like to call Sunday Sikhs, going to the Gurudwara or the temple, if you like, was just something that we would do once in a week. So Sikhi was more like a religion to us then, until I came to the UK. And then I realized that Sikhi is not actually a religion, it's a way of life. And it is something that becomes a part of me that, I have to become it every day. So I can't just detach myself from it. So yeah, I had a good upbringing in Kenya. Things were beautiful. I love the place still. I do occasionally go back. My brother lives in Nairobi, which is the capital city of Kenya. And I still have really good friends back home. I still call it home, you can see. And the kind of upbringing we had when I was in Kenya is totally different from, the way kids are brought up right now. Yeah, so it was good.
Very different. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about then how you went from realizing that Sikhism is a everyday way of life versus a religion. Tell me about that a little bit.
Okay, so yeah, this might rile up a few feathers. But in my understanding, religion is just designed to make you have less faith, actually. I know, surprise, surprise, right? You would think that religion is going to give you more faith, but religion actually causes you to start losing faith in yourself and to start having faith in the religion itself. And then they also go ahead and, make you start questioning yourself. Because what you're feeling deep inside might not necessarily resonate with what religion is telling you, because religion is mostly based, in fact, all religions are just based on some kind of texts or books that were written earlier on. And when what is resonating with you deep inside doesn't correspond with what you are reading or what you're feeling, then you realize that there's got to be something more. And then you start asking questions. And when those questions become uncomfortable, then you start shifting from what is called religion to what is called spirituality. And you start discovering that things can be really different than what the textbooks are telling you, because your experience and your feelings are telling you something else. So that was sort of my shift from understanding Sikhism as a religion to actually understanding it as a way of life.
So you shifted from Sikhism being exoteric for you to esoteric for you then. Would that be correct?
Yes, you could say that. However, having said that, sometimes your outward expression is actually what is happening internally, although the focus should always be an internal one. But then eventually what you portray yourself outside sometimes might not necessarily be what you're portraying yourself to be inside. So it's what is called the garb. The garb necessarily doesn't mean that if someone is wearing robes or has got, a high hat or a turban or something like that, that they're more necessarily spiritual or more religious. That is just, it's just a traditional dress and anyone can wear that.
Yeah.
It pays more heed to actually look into what someone is thinking deep inside of them. And there are people who are highly spiritual, but you will never know. You might just think it's just any other person walking down the street. But once you start talking to them, then you realize that, they really go deep. Yeah.
So tell us then what it is that made the shift for you. What was it? Was it like just a thought you had, or was it like some experience you had? There must have been something that happened that made the shift for you, so that you realize, okay, I have to go about this differently now. My life has to change differently. I have to look at Sikhism differently. What changed?
Okay, so generally speaking, I think most of us, we just go with the flow kind of thing, whatever is happening around us or whatever we see our parents doing, then we just go along with that. When I was younger, we used to sit with my dad and we would do prayers together, do kirtan, we call it, and do reading what we call Gurbani. So that was an intrinsic part of us. It is something that we did every day. And on weekends, we would sit and do kirtan for a couple of hours on Sundays. And I used to scratch my head thinking like, hang on, my friends are playing outside having fun. And why am I busy like in here, like being held into this kind of bondage? So I didn't appreciate that then. And for me, it was just like a token gesture or just something that I had to do because I had to do. And if I didn't do it, I'd be in trouble from, dad.
Yeah.
And then I realized when I came to the UK that Sikhism is better when you do it in community, what we call Sangat. When you have Sangat, then that is actually where the essence starts flowing more strongly. Because doing it as an individual is just your own journey, right? But when you have many people rowing the same boat, then it kind of becomes easier. And even when your energy becomes less, you'll realize that there'll be others around you who will just be pulling you along with that energy. And so that was my experience when I came here. Actually, my first experience was in 1995 when I went to my sister's wedding, actually, because my dad had died then. And I'd lost my mom already years before. So I was on my own. And my second sister was going to get married. She's elder to me. So we were in New Delhi. We went to what we call a smagam. It's an overnight sort of singing of holy hymns, what we call a rance by Kirtan. And I could see all these spiritual souls, that were singing. And we only used to see them on videos at home. And now I'm sitting there live looking at them and I'm just gobsmacked, amazed. And then I spent 2 weeks in Delhi, and then I came to the UK for another 2 weeks. And when I came to the UK for another 2 weeks, I'm seeing the same people who were in India again now here in London, and we're having another smagam, another Kirtan program. And I'm like totally blown away, like, wow, the same people, and I can be near them. And that just entirely changed my viewpoint in my life. And then I went back to Kenya and stayed there for another couple of years before I moved back here in 1997. And that's when I had Sangat. So Sangat is the key to me having that spiritual shift.
So tell me about Sangat then.
Sangat basically means congregation. And then we have also what is called Satsangat, which means what is the true congregation? Because anyone can have any kind of congregation. But then when you have what is called the true congregation, the recognition of that is when you know that you're praising the name of God together in unison without any kind of conflict or contradiction. That is when you know that you're in true Sangat. And especially for Sikhs, our Sangat starts from home. And our Sangat is also with what we call Sri Guru Granth Sahib, who is our living Guru. We don't see Sri Guru Granth Sahib just as a written book. The reverence and respect given to Sri Guru Granth Sahib is just like you would respect another human being, because what we call the Jyot or the light, the divine light, which also exists in human beings, is embodied in Sri Guru Granth Sahib, which others might look at as a book. But for us, it is the divine light that exists within what is written in Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji. And that's the reason why we bow down to that. It's like you, I'm talking to you now, and the only way I could actually reflect about who Shai Rose is, if you wrote a book and left exactly what you're thinking about yourself and you wrote it down yourself. And when I am reading Shai Rose's book, I will be able to connect to you, because through your book, you will come out alive to me. In a similar way, our gurus actually wrote what we call Gurbani, the writings in Guru Granth Sahib. They wrote them themselves. So it is authentic and without any interference. So yeah, and when we read Gurbani, we actually feel like it's the Guru's talking to us himself. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. So I have skimmed through the Guru Granth Sahib, but I have not read it cover to cover. I've studied a bit of Sikhism, and I've interviewed individuals who are Sikh who have talked about their faith and talked about different aspects of it, but I've not delved into it, fully, completely. But the aspect that interested me most was the meditative aspect, and the fact that it's really is a part of your life. Like, I'm Muslim, and in Islam we're told Islam is a way of life too, right? So I don't see the difference there in words. So describe to me in experience then how it was different for you before and after you made the decision of being in a satsang versus just individual search.
So when I was basically, my sangat basically started with my family. I had two brothers and two sisters, obviously mom and dad. My youngest brother passed away. So we were just, four kids, mom and dad. And because we used to pray together, our sangat was in our home. So for a good number of years, from my childhood up to my teenage years, that was my sangat. But beyond what was happening in our house, our residence, we would go to the Gurudwara, and that's where we would experience the other kind of Sikhi. But that other kind of Sikhi didn't resonate deeply with me, because I'm sorry to say, if there's anyone listening, it was just being done as a token gesture, or because someone had to do something on that day to keep everyone together. But the message that was being given to us didn't make any sense, because all they would be doing would just be reciting something from Guru Granth Sahib and then trying to give us an explanation of what that meant. When I came to the UK and I joined Sangat, the biggest difference actually happened around about, I think, 1998 or 2001, around that time. And we had a new application online that was called Sikhi to the Max. And Sikhi to the Max basically was just Gurbani put on a computer, so you could see it on a screen, on a video screen, or on a projector screen. And whatever was written there, you could read the translations and the meanings behind it as well. So that just hit me like a bomb, because suddenly I didn't need someone else trying to explain to me what was being said. I could just connect with exactly what I'm reading. I'm reading it, we are singing it together in Sangat, all of us, and the waves and the energy just hits you even more, because now you're reciting something that you can actually understand, and it just feels as if the Guru is speaking to you. So no matter where you're seated in the Sangat, whether you're the one seated at the front singing, or you're the one seated right at the back listening to it or enjoying it, you could be actually connecting to it more seated right at the back compared to the person who is actually singing it. And that was just the beauty of it. So that vibration is what I think pulled me in.
Wow. Yeah. So amazing. So amazing. So were you able to experience the whole Guru Granth Sahib this way?
You will find that when we're actually singing Kirtan, it's normally just a selection of verses from Guru Granth Sahib that are being recited, because obviously when you're singing, the melody part of it helps to sort of convey the message through to the bit, because music is a universal language, right? Everyone understands what music is. Yeah, so when singing, it becomes easier to do that. But there's two aspects to this. There's one where we recite Gurbani, that that's just reading Gurbani, and then there's the singing aspect of it, and then there's a third aspect of it as well, which goes hand in hand. So reading Gurbani and meditating are two different things. It's like the fuel and the fire. One has to be with the other. You cannot have the fire without the fuel, and the other way around as well. So when you're tired of meditating, then you go back into the, into the Gurbani, and then Gurbani again adds fuel to the fire, and then you meditate again. So we keep on swinging between these two states, either reading Gurbani or just meditating, and that's the energy that is connecting us with the oneness that exists. Yeah.
So similarly, I guess in Sufism, you have your zikr and you have your meditation. So you would chant the zikr and chant the zikr and chant the zikr, and then you have the meditation. So I guess it's a similar idea.
I've seen a bit of Sufi sort of videos online. As it is, you can almost get everything online these days. But yes, it's a sort of similar kind of concept. I mean, Guru Nanak Dev Ji, who was our first guru, did travel all over the world. And I'm sure he went to the Sufis and spoke to them as well. And yeah, so, what they are doing is probably very similar to what Sikhs are doing. So, and I think it's also universal. You do get that in other religions as well, singing and all. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It would have to be universal. Chanting is toning, and so you're vibing a certain frequency when you tone. So whether you're using Sikh words or you're using Islamic words, it's still toning. It's still sounds and vowels, and what you're doing is creating some kind of, like you said, fuel, right? Energy that's created with our voice and the sound, because what is everything? It's sound and light, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You see, this is the whole origin of really of everything. Even religions speak about this. I mean, you'll hear them saying, "Oh, there's a light," and "Oh, there's a sound," and "Oh, everything was created from a sound." But
yeah,
actually, what they're trying to say, instead of just saying sound or light, they're trying to say that everything came from energy. Because initially there was only one energy that existed that knew itself completely. And this energy just is, because we cannot create energy or destroy this energy. It already just is. But in order for this energy that already knew itself as itself, in order for it to move into the realm of the physical, where it could experience things from a concept point, because knowing is just a concept. You can know all good things about yourself, but that just remains a concept. Then you have to shift that knowing into the physical plane, where these things that you knew, now you experience them, and then everything becomes complete. So initially, what they call the Big Bang Theory, this thing knew everything about itself and then divided itself into individuations or particles of itself that spread out into the whole universe. And at that sudden moment, there was what is called the sound, Big Bang, obviously, and there was light as well, that other religions talk about as well. But at the same time, there's one other thing that is often brought into as a conflict, but it should not be a conflict. Energies that came out of that one Big Bang, those energies that were similar attracted each other, and they coagulated, they joined together as one. Hence, these energies which were similar and like, that they used to like each other, they would join and make up things. Hence, evolution is also true, just as true as the Big Bang Theory. They both go hand in hand. There is no conflict in that. It's just a question of understanding, which I think, it serves some religions not to portray that picture for their own reasons. I don't know what it is.
Right. Well, I mean, in every religion, whether it's whatever religion it is, there's a side that is more ritualistic and exoteric, where there's a side that is more spiritual and esoteric and even Gnostic, right? So, I believe everyone is at a different level, and different people require different forms to be able to rise themselves to the vibration that's required for their own state in the moment. And as they grow in their state, so will their experience change about their faith. And maybe it won't be their faith, maybe it'll be another faith or a different form of it. But the point is, the journey is individual, and then it becomes a communal journey, right?
Correct. You see, the way I look at it is that, and I posit even to the audience, anyone who's listening, that an atheist, someone who actively believes that the existence of God isn't, has a higher chance of experiencing this God than someone who is a theist or a passive theist. The reason why I say that is, for example, if I ask an atheist, do you believe in God? And most likely they're going to say, no, I don't believe in God. In that statement, they have said two things. One, that they don't believe in God. And secondly, that there must be a God for them not to believe it.
Exactly.
Exactly. So it brings us to the next question. If God doesn't exist and you say God is nothingness, then how do you describe this nothingness? Because the moment you start describing this nothingness, it ceases to be that nothingness and becomes exactly the thing that you are describing. It ceases to be nothing. So nothingness cannot exist. Somethingness has to exist. And numerically, that somethingness has to be just one. There only has to be this oneness. This is the same energy that I'm saying existed initially. And then from this energy, it just, Big Bang Theory, everything went everywhere. And it's not only going everywhere, it's actually expanding and collapsing. You know the way we breathe in and out? In a similar way, the universe just is breathing in and out. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so
Shairoz, you also touched a lot about faith. Can I just mention a point there about faith?
Sure, absolutely, so, please.
We normally say like, oh, someone has got faith, and those kind of words are used. But the thing that we're trying to say is how much aware is someone about something. And there's many levels of awareness. The 3 levels of awareness. The first one is when someone is said to have hope. When you have hope, it just means that there's a positive outcome that's possible, but you're not too sure if it's going to happen to you. The second level of awareness is when someone is said to have faith. When someone is said to have faith, it basically means that there's a guarantee of a positive outcome, but again, you're not too sure if it's going to happen to you. But above these 2 levels of hope and faith, there's a higher and third level that is hardly ever spoken about, because this level is either something that people are not aware about, they don't know, or because it is going to go contrary to what their belief tells them. This belief that I'm speaking about is actually not important. I always tell my audience or people I'm speaking to, belief in anything is not important. Even belief in God. What is more important is, what do you believe about that God? Is that a God who's got vengeance and hatred and anger and going to condemn you and punish you? Or is this a God who is going to love you unconditionally and give you freedom to express the truth and be exactly who you are without any consequences? That is why I believe we have to change what we believe about certain things, because what we have been trained over all these years is to believe in a certain way. Why? Because the book says so, and we can't question it. The third level of awareness is that level that is called knowing. When you come from a level of knowing that it doesn't matter what the outcome is, for you, the outcome is always going to be a positive outcome. You will see it as exactly what it is. You will be coming from that state of knowing that you are responsible for putting that situation out there, because you and God are actually co-creators. We are co-creating with God. It is not something that is happening to us. It is something that we put forward for ourselves to enjoy that experience in this physical world. So yeah, knowing is where we want to be in. In Sikhism, we call this knowing Chardikala, the state of higher spirits, where we know that no matter what's happening around us, we're always going to remain in higher spirits. And that even can happen if you're in a state of where there's pain or suffering, you're still able to be in a state of high spirits.
Wow.
Yeah.
It reminds me of a concept in our faith where Ainul Yakin, Ilmul Yakin, and Hakul Yakin. Ain is eye of certainty. Ilm is knowledge of certainty. And then Hak is truth of certainty. So what you see isn't necessarily the truth. What you know intellectually, not the super knowledge, not the knowledge of divine knowledge, but the intellectual knowledge, that's not necessarily the truth. But the truth, the Hakul Yakin, the truth of certainty, that's where you want to be. Where everything, where you know it is true innately, not somebody has told you, not something you've seen, not something you've read, but you know it internally. This is the truth of certainty. So similar concept there too, and it's in threes as well.
Yes, you see, this thing about threes, just taking a step back, if
Yeah.
we can understand how this the threes occur or the triad, remember I said that initially there was just this energy, and this energy knew everything about itself. So
Yes.
imagine you can put all goodness in one place, everything that is good around you, whether it's in imagination or physical or non-physical, put it in one place and give it a name. That name is going to be called God. The name
Right.
God is just a noun for goodness. When you put good things together in one place,
Yeah.
then the name given to that is just God. It's nothing
Yeah.
complicated. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
You can, we don't have to even argue or debate about it. It's simple as that.
Right.
This thing that existed initially as an energy that knew everything about itself as itself, knew it as itself as a concept. And for that concept to be complete, it had to experience the things that it knew. Like, for example, I'm sitting on a sofa here and I'm telling myself I'm a kind person, I'm a generous person. And on one side, I've got a drink, I'm drinking and I'm having popcorn on the other side, and I'm probably
Yeah.
watching telly. That's not going to make me a kind person or a generous person, right? But
Right.
go and do something on the physical world for me to be, to have that experience and know through experience that this is what I am. So in the absence of that which is not, that which is not. What do I mean by that? You cannot have cold without hot. You cannot have
Yeah.
high without low. You cannot have fast
Low.
without slow. You cannot have love without fear. And you cannot have God without the other thing which is not God. But the
Yes.
other thing which is not God cannot exist. That is impossible. There cannot be something which is equal and opposite to God. That is just impossible. But
But
this
that's
thing,
but when you put God in as goodness, then that's not my definition of God, because that's not omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent. It's not a, then it doesn't define God anymore for me. When you
okay,
put all,
on the contrary, it actually defines God, because when I said everything,
yes,
just listen to the word everything, put everything in there. That thing
right,
that we call goodness, put everything in that goodness. Now,
okay,
whatever choice of words you're going to use, no matter how glossy or bad it looks like, even the most profane and the profound,
yeah,
put it into that goodness. That goodness is where it exists. But this is the point I was trying to make. The thing which is not God has to exist in order for us to know what God is.
right,
You cannot have a certain word
right,
unless you've also got another word which stands to be the opposite of that word. So if
right,
we've got God, we must have something which is not God in order for the godness to exist.
right.
But this thing which is not God cannot exist in reality, but it can only exist as an illusion. This
That's put
illusion, yeah.
right,
So this illusion that makes us think that there's something equal and opposite to God is what people call the devil or shaitan or
right,
evilness. But
right.
this evilness is just a human construct. It serves a purpose. And the
Yes,
purpose it serves is to create that yin yang, the positive, negative kind of thing. But
yes,
we have to understand that it is only simply just an illusion. And how does that illusion occur? It occurs through the mind, because the mind is the only place where we can create that separatedness between us and God. Because intrinsically, spiritually or physically, we cannot be disconnected from this God. It is not
right.
possible for us to say, oh, I am in this place where God doesn't exist, and I'm in this place where God exists, or us and the Creator are separated. No, we can only imagine that we're separated, and that imagination comes from the mind.
Correct, correct. Agree with
That
you.
is why God is omnipresent. He's everywhere. It's just that
That's
we can't feel it. It's like me. Okay, to give you an example, right? You're seated in that room right now where you are in your cozy seat, I presume. And I'm seated here in my cozy room. How many radio waves do you think are right next to me as I speak?
very many.
Very many. Can I touch them? Can I feel them? No. I'm sure you can't either. Or maybe you can. I don't know. Superpowers.
No, not
Captain
yet.
America.
No,
But there are certain people who can be able to tune into these frequencies and know exactly what is happening around them.
yeah,
We call these people highly spiritually elevated because they can know exactly what is going on around them. It
yeah,
doesn't mean that these frequencies don't exist. In a similar way, God exists around us all the time.
yeah,
Every time He's right here, right now with us. But we can't experience that happening because we have not gone or delved into that frequency to be able to tune into, the God frequency that is trying to talk to us. The
right,
day we do that, then we start getting that interconnection. And the reason why that happens is because we are a three-part being: a mind, a body, and a soul. The
Right.
mind and body are the best of friends. So when the mind says, Friday, let's go and party. Hey, hello, let's go and do all these party things. The body says, yes, of course, I'm your friend. Let's go. And then you forget that you had to do your dishes, you had to wash clothes, you had to do other chores in the house, you had to do your homework to submit on Monday. And then when it comes to Monday, there's a voice telling you inside, hello, consequences of your actions, you should have done this, you should have done this, now
Right.
you're going to have to suffer the consequences. But this voice inside you, which is constantly telling you, it never stops you from doing exactly what you want to do, because it gives you the freedom to choose. But it will always alert you. This voice that is speaking from us internally is our soul, which is also the God soul. And because we come from the same soul, which is the supreme soul, which is God, God doesn't speak lies, so does our soul. It will never lie to us. But we don't listen to our soul. We tend to listen to our mind. And
Right.
hence we have this conflict, thinking that it's the mind that we need to follow instead of the soul. And the soul is actually the real part of us that we need to connect with. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so when we're talking about this mind, body, and soul, can you talk about the spiritual trinity in a little bit of a sense, like this Vishnu, Brahma, and Shiva, this concept of destroyer, creator, and balancer?
Yeah. Okay. So, sometimes we have stories which they sound pretty cool, right? And
Yeah.
since history began, I mean, if you look at humanity, we've only just written a fraction of the history that we're actually existing in, since humans came onto this world, right? So
Right.
it is hardly anything. But the only thing that connects us with what we call the past is history, and that's written word. And sometimes myths are used to explain certain things. We've heard of the story of the turtle and the rabbit. Were they speaking to each
Yeah.
other when they had that race? Probably not, but we understand the moral behind the story. So
Yeah.
sometimes the myths are used to explain certain things to us. But now let's take a step back into what
Maybe
is
maybe
actually
tell the
happening.
story. Maybe tell the story of the rabbit for those who don't understand it or don't know it, just briefly.
Oh yeah, so the story of the rabbit and the turtle, the moral, I don't know whether I should start with but the story is
Which
this.
one's slower? Which one's faster?
Yeah, which one's faster, which one's slower? So they had a race, right? And the tortoise just trudged along with its own pace, didn't even, was relentless, kept on going. But the rabbit, as it is, the different versions of the rabbit, it started running, and soon it saw something else, and it saw something else, and kept on running here and there, and didn't even go on the race. And then eventually, when it came to the end of the race, suddenly the tortoise was winning, and the rabbit, although it is faster, was nowhere to be seen. So the moral of the story is, what? Slow and sure wins the race. And that is the whole purpose of this life, right? Slow and sure, we're going to end up somewhere. But now going back to that Trinity thing that you spoke about, remember I said this goodness knows everything about itself, and then we had the Big Bang Theory. The
Yeah.
way it began is like this. Initially, there was only this one thing, the isness. There was nothing else. It was just as it is. And in order for it to experience itself into the physical realm, it divided itself into many individuations of the same thing. These individuations of the same thing, some religions call it that we are made in the image of God. What actually
Right.
means when they say in the image of God is not someone like me with a beard and
Of
with a
course.
turban or whatever.
Of
It
course.
actually means the God material is the same in the whole universe. If you look at it scientifically, all protons, all neutrons, and all electrons in the whole entire universe are exactly the same thing. And
Yes.
we have subatomic particles as well. Not just on Earth, even on the moon and everywhere else, they're the same thing. But because of the combination and the way they've been derived, it makes them behave in different ways, which is why I look like the way I am and you look like the way you are. But we're the same God material, if you understand it.
Yes.
Imagine like a house. I'm sure you live in a brick house, right? And I
No.
live in a brick house as well, right? So the bricks outside my house look exactly identical. I mean, for argument's sake, exactly like yours. But your house doesn't look like my house. So what does that mean? It's just the way the bricks have been arranged. They're the same brick, but they've been
Yes.
arranged differently.
The essence is the same. The form is the difference.
Absolutely. So now this thing, when it divided itself into individuations of itself, suddenly something was here, and then it was there, and then there's something in between here and there, which is neither here nor there. What is this third thing, which is neither here nor there? That is when relativity was created. Time and space occurred between here and there. This thing occurs only in a physical world, which is why when I ask you how far is certain place, you'll always give a reference point that London is so many miles from Vancouver.
Right.
There has to be a start point and there has to be an end point. How far, how long is it going to take? There has to be a time that starts and there has to be a time that ends. But actually, in reality, there is no concept of time. Timelessness is the thing that God exists within. Timelessness, where everything is happening in the moment of now. So these three things, here, there, in between, three things. It's the same thing as the past, the present, and the future. It's the same thing as our subconscious, our consciousness, and our superconsciousness. It's the same thing that these three, the atoms are with, the electrons, the neutrons, and the protons, and the energy that keeps them together. It's the same three things that we call the mind, the body, and the soul. It's the same three things that religions tend to call as Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu that you spoke about. It's the same three things that other religions tend to call the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. But it is our understanding of this triad, the three aspect being of us, that we have to understand. And the way I explain it this way, if I ask you, when is the present? You're going to tell me, when is the present? But that was 2 seconds ago. That was 2 seconds ago. When is the present?
No.
You see how it keeps on moving. It's an illusion, but it exists, but it doesn't exist, because the moment I tell you when is now, it takes you a couple of seconds to answer. So it's no longer now. Exactly. So do you see how this thing is actually just an illusion? It has been created to serve a purpose, that there's a division between these three things, but there's actually no division. When we are born into this world, we divide, disintegrate into these three being parts of us: the mind, the body, and the soul. Most of us, like I said before, we tend to listen more to the mind and instead of listening to the soul. And we think we're just a mind and a body, but that is not who we are. We've been given this body and this mind to experience that separatedness from God, so that eventually we can go back home, where home means God. And the thing that is leading us back home is this beacon inside us, which is our soul. But we don't listen to our soul, and we think we have two minds, but we don't have two minds. We've only got one mind. And if we start listening to our soul, it is going to give us no other choice but to remind us of who we are, because we are the truth. We are that part of God that will always speak the truth. And that will take us back to what we call home. Yeah.
So let's talk about now this body, mind, and soul. So those of us that aren't listening to the soul, tell us then what we can do to recognize the difference in our beings of the mind, body, and soul. We know the body, it's right here. The mind we know because it chatters all the time. So the soul now, the soul part, how does one experience this soul part, and what advice do you have for that individual who's never experienced it?
Okay. Do you remember the time when you were 7 years old? Were you ever 7 years old? Did you skip it? When you're 7 years old and your mom made this chocolate cake on your birthday, and she said, you know what? We're going to have this chocolate cake in the evening as a family. We're going to sit together. We'll have this chocolate cake. Please don't do anything to it. And what did you do? You went to school. You came back home for lunch. When you came for lunch, after lunch, when mom went to wash the dishes, you cheekily went into the fridge, looked at the cake, you licked that cake, and you closed the fridge door, and you went back to school in the afternoon. In the evening, when you came back home and you're sitting for dinner, your mom brought the cake on the table and she put it there and she asked, who touched this cake? What was the first answer you gave?
Well, it certainly wasn't me.
Exactly. So the first thing that you said was, it wasn't me. And that's just a natural tendency for most of us. Hey, it wasn't me. I didn't do that. But deep inside us, we know that there was a voice speaking to us and telling us, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, consequences. It's no, please. We overcame that voice and we decided to do what the mind was telling us. The mind is a monkey mind. It's going to travel all over the place. It's going to give you the sense of adventure. It's going to give you the sense of excitement and being rebellious and doing whatever you want to do, right? But inside us, there's this voice which is always speaking to us and telling us that there's going to be consequences of our actions. This little voice that we often confuse as the other mind is actually our soul. It is something that you will feel in your gut, just below the heart there. Like, sometimes people say, I've got butterflies in my stomach, or I had this gut feeling. This is something that you're going to feel deep under just your sternum, which is this part of the body. This is actually your soul speaking to us. And how are you going to know that it's your soul speaking to you? We do everything from two basic emotions, which is love and fear. Everything that we do is based on these two emotions, love and fear. But we think that love and fear are opposites, but they're not. They're exactly the same thing at a different degree. When we do things from a purely loving aspect, then we are doing it without ego. The moment we lower ourselves and start using the muddled mind to think about things and make decisions of that, then we are using the monkey mind, which can come up with all sorts of ideas and plans and even constructs that are going to be detrimental to what you really wanted to achieve. Why am I saying this? It's because your mind is going to give you many options to choose from, which could range from good or bad. Actually, good or bad doesn't exist, but I'm just giving you a range for this understanding. But your soul will always be very clear to you. When you start speaking to your soul, there will be no good or bad. There will just be a singularity, and you'll have extreme clarity with what is going on, because your soul is that part of God that speaks the truth. Your soul will tell you exactly what your truth is, and it will not go wrong. That when you start getting this clarity from within, then you will understand that you have got a higher purpose. An example came the other day, like, oh, okay, so you're holding a baby and you decide, I'm going to drop this baby. Now,
Oh
for
God.
the audience listening, please don't do that. We're not suggesting you drop babies, but you know how it is sometimes the wicked mind just thinks, so what's going to happen if I just drop this baby? I've got the baby, I'm holding it by the legs or something, I'm going to drop it. What does the mind say? Go and do it, man, doesn't matter. Let's see what happens, right? It's going to be fun. Or all sorts of things. But your soul is going to tell you, no, this is not who you are. This is not what represents the highest version of you. Don't follow what your mind is telling you. And when you listen to what your soul is telling you, you'll get exact clarity that, you know what, I cannot do this because this is not who I am. I am not a murderer. I am not someone who is going to injure another soul. I will actually respect this other soul. When we listen to the mind can give us all sorts of options. I hope that makes it a bit clearer when we understand that what is the mind speaking to us and what's the soul.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit back to Sikhism. So in Sikhism, there's many rituals that they do. Keeping a sword, wearing the turban, the bracelet, the long hair, and I'm missing one, I know, but you can help me. So
okay.
Maybe you can tell us what those are, what they represent, and what they represent physically, but also what they represent spiritually.
Okay. So when we are born, and I've heard this being said many times by people that I was born a Christian or I was born a Muslim or I was born a Hindu. Sorry, you're not born none of them. You're just born a human being. You just adopted what your parents or the environment around you brought you up in. And then you ended up calling yourself a Christian, a Muslim, or a Hindu, or even a Sikh. We're not born any of that. We're simply just born human beings. In this thing that we call life, we go to school, we study, and then, maybe we get some spiritual awakening and some kind of connection back to religion or spirituality. And most religions have got the thing that they call baptism. You can be baptized as another newborn Christian, or, I think the Muslims call it the Shahada or something like that. And I think Hindus have got their own version. For Sikhs, when we get baptized, you are actually giving your head to the Guru. And that doesn't mean practically chopping your head and giving it to the Guru. It just means that whatever your thinking is, your thinking stops to be yours and you start thinking according to what the Guru is going to tell you. Yeah, so that is what it means, you give your head to the Guru. At the baptism ceremony, you're given 5 articles. People call them articles of faith. But these articles of faith are not just something that you keep on a Sunday. These articles of faith are kept on our body all the time. When I say all the time, 24/7. Sometimes even my friends are surprised, like, you mean you sleep with this turban? I'm like, it's a smaller version of it, but yeah. And do you sleep with the kirpan, which is the sword that I wear with what we call a gatra around me? Yeah, I do that. And then I have bangles. In fact, I have two. And then I have what is called like a pair of braces or shorts, similar to a boxing short, which has got a knot on it. And then I've also got a comb, which is in my hair, which I've placed right at the back here. So I've tied a knot on my hair and I've put it right at the back. So what does this symbolize? You will notice most of the Sikhs that you see around in the world have got a long beard. Why do we have a long beard? It is because we believe in the perfection of God. We believe that God created us perfect. God creates perfection. God cannot make mistakes. There is no possibility that God can make mistakes in anything. God simply has to make perfection. When we understand that, then we do not interfere with that perfection. I know some people might argue, oh, then why do you cut your nails? Well, naturally, nails just break off and they disappear. But hair keeps on growing to a certain length. I've never cut my hair. I've never cut my beard. It's grown to this length and it's just constantly there. To keep my hair clean and to comb it twice a day, which I do every day in the morning and before I go to bed, I've been given a comb. To keep this hair, which is right on my head only, and my crown, I tie it in a knot. And to keep it clean from other kind of pollution, I tie a smaller turban, similar to this, but slightly smaller version. It's about 3 meters long. I tie it every day, everywhere I go, even when I sleep. I have also been given 2 bangles here. Well, mostly people just wear 1. And this symbolizes my, when someone gets arrested, like you're arrested and then the policeman wears one side of the, the handcuffs and you wear the other one. It's similar to me, reminding myself that I'm handcuffed to my guru. Yeah. So whatever I try to do, mostly we do things with our hands. When I'm going to do something which is going to be contrary to what my guru is telling me, I will be reminded by these that, hello, think about what you're doing. And then that brings me to the 5th thing. The 4th thing. 4th or 5th? The braces.
Yeah.
The braces the 4th thing. The braces that I wear have got a what we call a nala, which is a knot. So, you've seen these trainers that kids wear, trousers, and then it's got a knot so that it doesn't slip. The reason why we have got that with the knot is because whatever you're going to do with your body parts, you will be consciously doing it. You will not say that, oh, this just slipped and then I happen to do so and so things with whoever and whoever, right? You will be conscious that you are responsible for your actions and there'll be consequences to your actions, which is why we wear this. It's a loose kind of fitting short, which actually helps as well. And you tie it with a knot. And lastly, we carry a kirpan, which is, I'm wearing it. Well, I'll try and show you as I speak. That is my kirpan there. And you can see it's with a string, with a kind of string or a piece of cloth, which goes all the way around me. And I wear this every day, 24/7. We call it a kirpan, which means it stands for 2 words, kirpa on. Okay, so it is actually a blessing. I can use this as an instrument to defend someone else before I defend myself. The reason why we carry this is simply because if there comes a situation that we see someone being unjustly attacked or some kind of injustice being performed, then we should be ready to sacrifice our lives for someone else. So I'll use it for someone else before I use it to defend myself. Right. So it's something that we carry with ourselves all the time. I mean, I think America has got the freedom of carrying arms. I'm totally in support of that. And that is why we have these 5 articles of faith. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So now what I'd like to do is, well, first of all, I want to say, when you spoke about the tenets of faith or whatever you want to call it, everyone has these tenets of faith. They're more an outwardly thing, but they also represent something inwardly, right?
Yes. So
do they represent something inwardly for you, or in this case, it is really an outwardly thing?
So most of these things are actually just outwardly, because for us to be able to progress spiritually, where spiritually is that inner thing, we also have to have this body, which is the outward thing. And if we don't treat this body well and take care of it, then we will not be able to progress inwardly. How do I put it in a way that makes sense? So, like I said earlier on, everything that we do is based on these two emotions, love and fear, which are not actually opposites. It's the same thing at a different degree.
Right.
And this emotion, which is basically just energy in motion, we can either be promoting this energy, promotion, or we can be in demotion. So when you're in demotion, you're just going into a negative energy, which gives you things like anxiety, depression, and you're feeling quite low about yourself. When you have positive emotion, then you are feeling more energized. For example, if you physically do exercise, you get this adrenaline rush and you feel all these highs and your body feels more energized to do stuff. So you feel more positive about yourself. And science has proved that as well. Also, you can mentally do things like meditation, which kind of also gives you a similar high. When you meditate, you spiritually uplift yourself. So these two things, because we're doing them from a point of either loving or fear, the spiritual connection happens when your mind and body are both in tune. So your outward, whatever you're wearing outside, for example, the comb that I said is for keeping my hair clean. I mean, if my hair is in, jumbled up and in knots, I'm going to feel really uncomfortable, scratching my head all the time, or, feeling headaches, right? All these things also inspire us internally, so that when I'm able to meditate, I go into a state of knowing that I don't need to express anything outwardly. It is all going to happen insidely. If we're looking for outward confirmation, then we don't get an inward experience. Right. And what we look for outside is actually within us. So
really what it does is it keeps the distractions away. All those things you'd be thinking about during your meditation that could affect you, like, is someone going to hurt me? No, I'm protected. Is God with me? Yes, he's with me. He's always with me. I'm wearing my bangles or whatever. Your hair is never going to be your way during meditation because it's always tied up. Some people long hair bugs them in the meditation, and so on.
Exactly. Well, there's another thing I missed saying about the turban as well. I mean, when the Khalsa was created, basically baptized Sikhs, the Guru asked for heads to be given for them to become Khalsa. Basically, for them to become Khalsa, right? They had to give their thinking into what we call Gurmat. To identify the Sikhs of the Guru who would stand out from the rest of the crowd, it's like a sore thumb. Remember, if you knock your thumb with a hammer, it's going to stand out from the rest of your fingers. In a similar way, the turban has been given to us distinctly to separate us. Well, separate is probably not the right word. To identify us, even amongst a crowd, that someone could know, okay, that is a Sikh of the Guru. Standing in a crowd as a beacon, someone would know that is where I can get help. So even without me saying, I'm a Sikh of the Guru, come and help me, the turban would just be shouting for me. Right. And, so we were supposed to be, I don't know if it's happening everywhere these days, but we were supposed to be embodiment of that righteousness, of that, somewhere where people could go for help, somewhere where someone knew that, what, I can leave my daughter with this man because this person is trustworthy. I can leave everything that I have, my belongings, with this person because I know this person is going to take care of them. So this turban here was giving us that identity and the uniqueness to stand out from the crowd. And I don't know, it's the same case these days, because these days we are more materialistically, attached. Sometimes it just becomes a fashion now, right? So let's
now go into deeper subject. Let's go into the meditation aspect of things. Okay, I've interviewed a few other Sikh people, and they talk about meditation, but not meditating in silence, but meditating and looking for a sound. And so you're not sitting in silence, but you're sitting there to hear something. Can you speak about this a little bit, or what this aspect is about?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to take 2 steps back to try and understand actually why this is done. Now, remember I said we're a 3-part being, a mind, a body, and soul. And the soul aspect of us is actually the God aspect of us that everyone has got. All humanity has got this soul. Whether you can call someone good or bad, doesn't really matter. They are still God's creation, right? And a part of God. They can never be separated from God. Right. This thing that is the soul inside us, in order for us to experience that, we have got what we call ambrosial nectar that keeps on flowing from the head. You know, some scientists or people will call it like the pineal gland, which is inside, just below the mind, the brain, and through it trickles, you know, liquids which go right through the body and all the way down.
Right.
Now, understand that first, because this thing is constantly flowing with us every day. Now, if, for example, I told you where you're seated that there was water in the ground right below where you're seated, about 100 meters down, and you need to get that water out, what would you do? You'd have to make a hole, put a pipe all the way down to the ground, and then, you know, connect several pipes all the way up to, you know, to where you're standing. And then what would you do? You would put a pump next to that pipe, which you put into the ground. Now you can see the water right, you know, you look through in the hole and you can see the water right down there. And now you need to get it out. You connect the pump and you start the pump, and this pump starts to run. In a similar way, we've got a heart which is circulating blood and making us do all these things in this physical world, and our blood is flowing. But how do we get this water out of this ground right below? In order for us to get this water outside from the ground, we first have to put water in that pipe.
Yes.
Yes. Until that water pipe is fully complete, that is the only way that when you start the pump, the water will start coming out. When Sikhs get baptized, that is exactly what happens. When we get baptized, there is the preparation of what we call Amrit, which is done by 5 Gursikhs who are actually practicing Gursikhs. They'll come around in the presence of Guru Granth Sahib and someone seated, you know, on the throne of Guru Granth Sahib. They will prepare what we call Amrit. And then this Amrit is administered to each individual in a way that is just ordained within the Sikh way of life. I don't want to get too much into details here because it can get quite nitty-gritty. It's something you have to experience. When that is done, then the 5 beloved ones, who we call the Panch Pyare, will put their hands on your head and they will implant in you the seed that will trigger this nectar flowing from the top of your head into the rest of your body.
So when this happens, it's a spiritual thing. It's a spiritual experience, right?
Correct. It's a spiritual experience, exactly.
Okay.
And then that starts your meditation. So once your meditation starts, this is just something that you have done on the initial day when you got, you know, initiated, you became baptized. But then you have to carry this on every day, which is why we have got what we call Nithanim, which is practicing reading the praises of Waheguru, God. We practice reading these verses every day. So we pray in the mornings and in the evenings as well, and any other time in between if you so choose to. It doesn't really matter.
Praising God is a means of humbling yourself, correct? It's a means of shutting down the ego and just humbling yourself to the knowingness that, you know, you're created. You aren't higher than what created you.
Yeah, the sum of the parts can never be greater than the whole. So, you know, we are parts of that individuations of the whole. So, you know, each one of us cannot claim to be God, but all of us together, put together with everything, again, the word everything, we can be God that way. Yes. But it's for us to understand that, yes, I'm a part of God, and to understand that, you know what, I cannot claim myself to be God. They're two distinct things. An individual cannot be God.
Yes, I hear you.
Yeah, so this meditation, once your meditation starts, then it is something you just keep on practicing. And why do you have to do it? Say, for example, I asked you, okay, let's have this quick fire round. 2 + 2.
4.
2 × 3?
6.
Okay, so there you go. So I'm just giving you an example. Did you see how quickly you're able to rattle these numbers out without even thinking too much? And why is that? When you're in school, you know, on day 1, and they started telling you what's 2 + 2, you're scratching your head like, what's 2 + 2? It became difficult. And the teacher kept on telling you 2 + 2 is 4, 2 + 2 is 4. It kept on being drilled into you over and over and over until it intrinsically became a part of you. In a similar way, when we meditate and we focus on what we're meditating on, which is actually just the oneness, or some people want to call it nothingness. I don't choose to call it nothingness. But when we focus on that unity that only exists, by speaking it out loud, by listening to it, and by putting our focus on what we're saying when we're meditating, then we're able to bring that thing that we're outwardly speaking out into ourselves. So when you're taking it out of yourself, that is why people speak, by meditation out loud, because they shut off all the other sounds around them, and they only focus on what they're saying and singing, so that it brings the oneness into them. Then that thing becomes a part of you. That meditation becomes a part of you. Then no matter what you're doing, it becomes something that you're actually breathing every day. Because remember, you breathe, whether you sleep or you're awake, you're still breathing. And once you get that meditation into your breath, then it doesn't matter what you're doing or where you are in this world. You're actually constantly breathing all the time, and it becomes a part of you. But why are we doing that? The only reason we are doing that is because of the last breath that we're going to take in this physical world. This is the whole purpose of this journey. At that moment, when you're going to leave this physical world, going on to the state of knowing where we came from, what will be your state at that point? What are you going to be thinking at that point? What are you going to be expressing yourself as? The whole purpose of this meditation is for us to have that last point when we take our last breath. And then with that energy that we have acquired in this physical life, that will propel us to the other side of what we call God or knowing. And then we will realize that what we knew about God was not enough, that there's more to know, and there's more to know, and there's more to know. And then we just keep on coming in these cycles of life or death, life or death, life or death. Yeah.
And there's more journeys. So
absolutely.
Okay, so about the outer world, the Maya, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
So we get caught up in it with our fears and our this and our that. So you are saying the more at peace we are in us, our outside experiences will also be that much more peaceful. Is that right?
Yes, because if you understand it from the perspective that there's no right or wrong, that there's no good or evil, there's only oneness. And the way to understand it is this, right? In the absence of that which is not, that which is not. You cannot have high without low. You cannot have fast without slow. You cannot have love without fear. You cannot have God without that thing which is not God. But that thing which is not God cannot exist. We have God, and in order for us to know who we are, we should also know who we are not. Correct? I am not a murderer. I am not these things. That doesn't mean I have to go and murder someone to know that I'm not a murderer. I should just know that that thing exists, which makes me different from the thing that I want to be. I want to be like God because those are the qualities I aspire to be. But in order for me to know what God is, I also have to know the other thing, which is not God. But this other thing, which is not God, does not exist, which is why God is omnipresent everywhere and is omniscient also everywhere and is all-knowing everywhere. Whether you want to call this heaven or you want to call this hell, God is everywhere. But this thing that we call hell is actually not remembering who you are. Every moment that you forget that you are that part of goodness, which is God, you are literally in hell. So the thing which is not God has to exist as somewhere, because it cannot exist inside. We agree that God is everywhere, but this thing which is not God also has to exist for us to understand what God is. So how do we create this separation that there's this thing which is not God, but it is also within God? That's where the mind comes in. The mind gives you that separation, the illusion that we are separated from God and that there's something else that exists which is not God. But it is simply just an illusion that serves a purpose. Once we understand that it is simply just an illusion that is serving a purpose, then we get clarity, and then we don't get mangled into what is called Maya. We know that this Maya has to exist in order for the other thing which is called God to exist. And we are thankful for both, knowing that this is the illusion and this is the reality. What we're existing in right now is actually the illusion. The reality is on the other side where there's only God.
So when we talk about Maya, so there's an individual Maya and then there's a collective Maya. So right now we've created this collective Maya that we're sitting in right now. So So talk about that. How did it come to be? How do we transcend it? And what advice do you have for people in order for us to see a new reality?
Okay. So remember I told you that, I'm glad it just flows, right? So I told you that we have what is God and then the thing which is not God. But this thing which is not God, I'm using my hands to express, probably easier. This thing which is not God cannot exist because God is everything, okay?
Right.
But this thing which is not God has to exist as an illusion. And that illusion is created in the mind. So imagine in my mind, there's a line like this that creates a separatedness that that's God and that down here is not God, okay? So that veil, I call it the veil of separation, exists in the mind. By design, it serves a purpose. But this is what we do as human beings. When we come into this world where we call this Maya, and we have been given this Maya by design, on top of this veil, which is in the mind, I'm just drawing these lines, imaginary lines in my head so you can understand visually. This line in my head where the veil of separation occurs, on top of this, we keep on piling other things that we are experiencing in this world. I start watching movies, which are not going to improve my spirituality. I start doing fraud. I start lying to people. I start doing all these kind of things, which keep on piling more and more and more and more layers into this line, which was just a thin veil that was just simply there to give us that perspective of separatedness, the illusion. But because now this thin veil is being piled more and more and more and more with our own Maya that we put there, then we have to start cleaning it, because eventually it becomes so thick that we can't see from our eyes up to the other side and know that, you know what, we're just one with God. It totally becomes like a solid, you know, what can I call it? Like a glass that's been plastered with lots of mud and you can't see through it. And then we think that we are only existing us and there's nothing that exists above. And then we think we are just an ego and it's just me, 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 me. And then we don't see the you, which is capital Y, that it's him that exists. We think it's just me because the ego starts speaking because of the Maya. The way to get rid and to transcend from this state into the other state is through clearing this veil of Maya, which is in our mind. And how do you do that? You can do that by meditating, concentrating on, you know, the word of God. That's actually a loose term, the word of God. It's actually praying, connecting with the feelings, meditating, doing seva, basically voluntary service, and reading Gurbani and stuff. That's what the Guru tells us to do, read Gurbani so that you can clear this veil. And eventually when you start clearing the veil, you'll be able to see right through it. And once you see right through it, then certainly everything becomes one. Then you realize, oh, whether I'm in Maya or I'm on the other side, it is actually just oneness, because this Maya was created by design and it actually doesn't exist and it's just an illusion. Then you start seeing clarity. And when that clarity happens, then you've transcended from one state to the other.
Got you. Wow. Thank you. Thank you, Satnam. It was a real pleasure to have you and to communicate with you and to discuss with you and for you to share these things with everyone. Maybe to close, you can share something you want to share with everyone that maybe I haven't asked you, or something that maybe I don't even know to ask you. Just share something with us.
Okay, so I'm just going to share from what I spoke to you earlier on about awareness and the 3 levels of awareness, where one is hope. I mean, something positive is going to happen, you're not sure it's going to happen to you. And then the second one is when someone is said to have faith, and that means there's a guarantee of a positive outcome. But again, you're not sure it's going to happen to you. And then the third level, which is hardly spoken about, is the level of knowing. And when you come from a level of knowing, then you totally understand that whatever is going to happen is always going to be positive for you, regardless of how other people look at it and see it or respond to it or communicate with it. For you, it will always be positive. And that is the state of being in Chandikla, in a state of knowing. That doesn't mean that you know everything. It just means that you are aware of what's going around you. And how do we know about this knowing thing? There's 6 types of people who know. The first ones are those who don't know and don't know that they don't know. Who are those? Those are children. We need to nurture them and guide them and, you know, just be with them. The second is they're those who don't know and know that they don't know. Who are these people who don't know and know that they don't know? They're willing, because once you speak to them and discuss things with them, they're willing to understand, and they will tell you, thank you for letting us know. Now we understand this thing, and they will improve their lives. The third is those who don't know and pretend that they know. Who are these people who don't know and pretend that they know? They're dangerous. Avoid them, because you don't want to hang around someone who doesn't know and is pretending that they know, and they do exist amongst us. The fourth type of knowing, they're those people who know but don't know that they know. Who are these people who know but don't know that they know? they are asleep. Unfortunately, most of us are asleep as well in this world. We're doing things unconsciously. We think we know what we're doing, but we are not doing things consciously. We're just going through the rigmarole of this life and just, going with the flow kind of thing. We're not consciously doing things. We are asleep. Our brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, friends, they're asleep. We need to wake them up. If you're aware, then you can wake them up. The fifth level of knowing are those people who know, but they pretend that they don't know. And most of us are there as well. We start living our lives precariously through other people because we think we want to be like them. They've got materialistic stuff, they've got houses, they've got cars, they've got this and that. And we want to be like them because we're enjoying the drama so much that we forget about our own lives and we start living in their lives. I'm sure there's certain people here, for example, they will always want to see what was next on the favorite TV serial. If they miss one episode, they're like, oh my God, what happened to so-and-so, because their life becomes something else. They forget about their own life. No, start living your own life. Just enjoy the drama. It's okay, just enjoy the drama, but don't get too involved in it. The sixth type of people who know are those who know and they know that they know. Don't follow them. Because those who know and know that they know, they will never have any followers. They'll always send you back to the source. Yeah. And these kind of people will always have something quirky about them that you'll always think, hello, I didn't think this person could do that. And the reason why they have something quirky about them is because that thing grounds them to earth. It makes them realize that they're not an ego, that they're just another soul. And that quirkiness will bring them down to that level, the humbleness. But these people are quite important because you have called them upon yourself. You have brought them into your presence. And if you find someone like that, spend a lot of time with them because they have been sent specially to remind you of who you are. What do I mean when I say they've come here to remind you? Because they have come to remind you because you have forgotten who you are, because you are a member of the oneness. When you come out of your mind and you go back to your soul, then you become a member of this oneness that you're trying to connect to, which is actually the real us. When you meet someone like that, pay a lot of attention to what they have to say because they'll only be here to remind you of who you are. And who you are is just a part of God and you are love. And that is the thing that we're chasing for outside. If you're looking for outward confirmation, then you will never have an inward experience. If you're always going to be looking for this thing outside, you're never going to experience it inside. And I think that's probably my gift to you.
I want to go back a little bit. One, when you're born without religion, like you said, and Absolutely. Then your surroundings or whatever create that reality for you. But what about this idea that says that you come here knowing who your parents are, knowing where you're born, deciding where you're born for a particular purpose?
Absolutely. That is true. Some of us think, oh, I didn't choose to be this or I didn't choose to be that. No. Remember I said you're here to remember who you are? How many of us have been a member of a family or a club? We have been. You become a member of a club. And in this club that is called the family, there's 4 entities that are involved. Your mom, your dad, yourself, and God. 4 of us are involved in this, what I would like to call a contract, that is your family club, right? And when you're born into this family, you disintegrate into these 3 parts, the mind, the body, and soul. You follow exactly what the club rules are. For example, in a family, the club rules are, you got to bring the dishes to the sink, you got to wash your clothes, you got to do your bed, you got to sit down with the family eating dinner. And when you're a young kid, you do that. As you grow older and older and older, you sort of tend to forget these things. You become a bit more rebellious, spending more time on Xbox or spending more time on other things which are distractive, but it's okay because we all do that as kids, nothing wrong with that. And then we start forgetting this family responsibility and the family ritual and we move away from it. And once we move away from it, we start missing our mom's dinner. We start missing the fact that we used to sit together and pray and we want to reconnect with that. And then suddenly we meet someone who reminds us of this thing that, wow, remember how mom's dinner was? The roti was really nice. Would you like some like that? And when you have meal at the place, you think, oh my God, I want to go back to my family. I want to reconnect with my mom. I want to sit down with my dad and pray together. I want to be one with them again. What do you do when you have lost membership of a club and then you want to become a member of that club again? You have to reapply and they have to give you readmission. And then what do you become once they give you the readmission? You don't become a member again. You become a remember.
Yeah.
Because you remember before, and now you're a remember, which is exactly what we're doing in this life, trying to remember who we are because we've forgotten who we are.
Beautiful analogy.
Yeah. So these things that we think, oh, it was just dumped upon us, our parents were dumped upon us. No, you chose your parents. You decided that you wanted to have an experience somewhere in this universe, and those parents were going to give you that ability to be able to experience that. Remember, I said we're a three-part being: a mind, a body, and our soul. Our soul has got desires. Our mind chooses between the options of those desires, and then our body plays the act out of those desires which you experience in this life. What is happening in this moment right now is what we call the present. And I showed you earlier on how this is just an illusion. It is not the, it's not the reality, it's the illusion. But why do we call it the present? Because like when it was your birthday, you're given a gift. This is also a gift that your soul has given to you so that you can experience it now. So you actually gave yourself these experiences by yourself. So it's not happening to you. You chose at one point, I want to experience how it feels like to live in a Christian family. How does it feel like to live in a Hindu family? How does it feel like in a Sikh family? You gave yourself that. Now you're experiencing it. If you think this experience is going to serve a higher purpose and be a definition of who you are, then by all means carry on. If you feel that this doesn't express the trueness of who you really are, by all means shift to another elevation. We are constantly evolving, and we're trying to evolve because we're just trying to find ourselves. That's the search. And most of us think that God is the destination. God is not the destination. God is the journey. So just enjoy the journey, because you know what? This is all you've got. The good news is the journey has already begun. The bad news is the journey has already begun. What can you do about it? Yeah.
Thank you, Satnam. Thank you so much. It was an honor to interview you. Much fun interviewing you. And I hope we can do this again, maybe delve deeper one of these days. Do you teach? Do you have a place where people can come to learn from you, or do you recommend a teacher?
Oh, you know what? What I say is this, right? I always say my teacher is Guru Granth Sahib. My sole focus in my life is my guru, and that is Guru Granth Sahib. What I have learned from my guru is just immense gems that I get. I can't even begin to explain how many gems I can get. I mean, if anyone is listening to this, just go and Google Sikhi to the max, and you can go into that and search on any kind of Gurbani. You can even put it in English, and you'll get what we call shabads or hymns that will come up, and they can resonate with what your life is telling you. Try it. It's an ocean full of gems, and that is what I connect with. I always tell the people I speak to, or the audience, or whoever is sharing this with me, that please, if you've learned even one thing from this conversation, then go and share it out with someone else, because that to me will be like a thanks. If you want to thank me, then just do that, because you know what? Knowledge is for us to share. Once we share this knowledge, we become more aware, and once we become more aware, then we all know we're headed in the same direction. We're not any different. We're all the same. We just behave differently, but we're just the same. So yeah.
Thank you, Satnamji.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your time.